Following the Battle of Mycale, the Athenians chose to bring the fight to the Persians in an attempt to stop their influence along the Aegean Sea and thwart another potential invasion. The Peloponnesians sailed home, believing their mission was accomplished, while the Athenians remained at the Chersonese, which was still held by the Persians. The Persians in the surrounding cities flocked into the city of Sestos, the strongest town, upon hearing that the Athenians were coming. However, the Persian satrap, or governor, had not prepared for a siege, believing that the Athenians wouldn't attack. Therefore, the Athenians were able to quickly lay a siege around Sestos, which dragged on for several months, which caused discontent amongst the Athenian troops. The city eventually ran out of food, and the Persian leaders fled at night using the least guarded area of the city perimeter. In the morning, the Athenians were able to take possession of the city. Most of the Athenian troops were sent straight away to pursue the fleeing Persians. One of the fleeing parties was captured by a Thracian tribe and sacrificed to a god. The Athenians eventually caught the rest, and they were crucified at the request of the people of the Chersonese. The Athenians, having pacified the region, sailed back to Athens, taking the cables from the pontoon bridges with them as trophies. Now that the threat of another Persian invasion was halted, the Athenians began to rebuild their city and walls, and the people who had evacuated returned home. The Spartans sent an embassy to Athens because they didn't like the idea of their cities having walls, and wanted Greece to come together to take down all the walls. This sounds like a bad idea, but the real meaning of this advice was so if in the event of a third invasion, the Persians wouldn't have control of a defendable city that they could use as a base like Mardonius had in Thebes before the Battle of Plataea. Themistocles wanted to wait to give an answer until they built their walls high enough and sent the ambassadors away, stating they will send someone to Sparta to discuss the idea. Themistocles then traveled to Sparta and delayed giving an answer as long as possible until the Spartans sent people to investigate and returned that they were still building a wall. Then Themistocles spilled the beans and confessed, stating a wall would be more of an advantage than a disadvantage. This annoyed the Spartans, but neither side complained. Meanwhile, a fleet of 20 Peloponnesian ships and 30 Athenian ships led by Pausanias, a Spartan naval commander, made an expedition against Cyprus and subdued most of the island. Afterwards, they sailed up the Hellespont against Byzantium, which was still controlled by the Persians, and managed to capture the city. With both Sestos and Byzantium, the Greeks were able to conduct merchant trade in the Black Sea. The naval commander Pausanias grew an interest in Persian customs and was arrested for conspiring with the Persians. This left the Athenians in charge of the expedition when the Spartans left, and ultimately gave the Athenians the power to have the cities contribute to a treasury stationed at Delos to defend against Persia. This was the beginning of the formation of the Delian League, and ultimately the Athenian Empire. First, the Athenians besieged and captured the city of Ion from the Persians under the command of Cimon. They then sailed to Skyros, an island in the Aegean Sea, and enslaved the population there. They then sailed to Charistos, and they surrendered as well. The islands of Samos, Chios, and Lesbos, as well as other Ionian cities, also voluntarily joined the League. In 471 BCE, Naxos attempted to secede from the League, becoming the first to do so. So the Athenians sieged the city and took it. They tore down their walls and removed their fleet and vote in the League as punishment. 4 years later, the island of Thasos also rebelled over a dispute over control of markets in Thrace and a gold mine that the Thasos controlled. The loss of those markets and the gold mine would be a serious economic blow for Thasos. The Athenians thus besieged the city of Thasos, which would continue for over 2 years, which was hard on the population of the city. Anyone who proposed to surrender were sentenced to death, and the women had to cut their hair to provide rope-making material during a shortage. The people were hoping for a Spartan intervention, as they had asked for assistance and were given a secret promise that the Spartans would invade Attica, which was never carried out due to an earthquake in Sparta. After the siege, Thasos was forced to abandon its claims to disputed territories, tear down its walls, give up its fleet, and pay tribute to Athens. The Athenians then turned their eyes to another potential threat, where a growing Persian fleet of 200 triremes was anchoring near the mouth of the Eurymedon River. Cimon wanted to attack the Persian fleet before any reinforcements arrived, whereupon the Persian fleet retreated into the river in order to avoid fighting the Greeks. When Cimon followed the Persians, they accepted the battle, and the Persian battle line was quickly breached, and they made for the river bank, grounding their ships. The crews sought sanctuary with the army stationed nearby. The Persian army began to move towards the Greek fleet. Despite their weariness, the Greeks grounded their ships and proceeded to attack the Persian army. Initially, the Persian line held the Athenian assault, but eventually the heavily armored hoplites proved superior and routed the Persian army, which fled back to their camp. The Greeks gave chase and captured the Persians and their camp. Meanwhile, in Egypt, a rebellion sprung about when the new Persian king Artaxerxes ascended to the throne. The Egyptians asked the Athenians for assistance, which they gave in the form of 200 ships. Ultimately, the expedition in Egypt failed after 6 years. The Athenians then sailed back to Cyprus to continue fighting there, and managed to beat the Persian forces stationed there. The Persians then called for peace with the Greeks. The peace treaty, known as the Peace of Calais, finally ended the Greco-Persian War. But this wasn't the end of war for Greece. Tensions were spicing up between Sparta and Athens over supremacy. The Spartans feared the increasing power of the Athenian Empire and Athens' actions against Spartan wishes. The tension caught fire when a Helot rebellion in Sparta triggered, and Sparta called for assistance from its allies, including Athens. But we will learn what Athens does in response to the call for help from Sparta in the next episode. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you like this type of content. Thank you all for watching.